By July 2025, the Gaza Strip remained a landscape profoundly scarred, a testament to enduring human suffering and geopolitical deadlock. Its urban sprawl lay largely in ruins, a direct consequence of the devastating conflict that had reignited with brutal force on October 7, 2023. That fateful morning, a meticulously planned assault by Hamas militants from Gaza into southern Israel shattered any semblance of fragile calm. The brazen attacks, involving widespread civilian abductions and killings, sparked immediate and profound global shockwaves. This unprecedented escalation irrevocably altered the security situation for Israel and plunged the Palestinian population in Gaza into an even deeper humanitarian catastrophe. The initial global response was a powerful outpouring of solidarity with Israel, condemnation of Hamas's actions, and immediate calls for the release of hostages. Major Western powers, including the United Kingdom, swiftly reaffirmed Israel's right to self-defense. However, as the Israeli military response intensified and its scale became tragically apparent, international attention began to pivot towards the unfolding crisis within Gaza. The ensuing months witnessed relentless airstrikes and a ground offensive that systematically targeted Hamas infrastructure but also led to an unprecedented loss of civilian lives and the widespread destruction of homes, hospitals, and critical infrastructure. By July 2025, over 37,000 Palestinians had reportedly been killed, a significant portion of them women and children, while more than 85,000 were injured. The vast majority of Gaza's 2.3 million residents had been displaced multiple times, crammed into desperate makeshift camps or southern areas, facing severe shortages of food, water, medicine, and shelter. This dire humanitarian situation brought the perennial conflict to the forefront of the global agenda, reigniting fierce debates over international law, proportionality, and the protection of civilians in armed conflict. Historically, Gaza has long existed as an enclave under an Israeli and Egyptian blockade, a territory frequently described by international observers as an open-air prison. Its deep-seated grievances, rooted in decades of occupation and the denial of a sovereign Palestinian state, had fed cycles of violence, each leaving deeper scars on its population. The events of October 7 and the subsequent Israeli response, however, pushed the situation to an unparalleled level of destruction and despair, challenging the very fabric of international humanitarian aid efforts and diplomatic engagement. From the United Nations, which repeatedly warned of famine conditions and an impending public health disaster, to a diverse array of international non-governmental organizations, the call for immediate and unhindered humanitarian access grew increasingly urgent. Key international actors, including the United States, European Union nations, and various Arab states, engaged in complex and often frustrating diplomatic negotiations. Early efforts focused on securing humanitarian pauses and negotiating prisoner-hostage exchanges, but a comprehensive ceasefire remained elusive, caught in the intractable demands of both sides. Israel maintained its stated objective of eradicating Hamas, while Hamas demanded a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces and an end to the blockade. The implications for regional stability were profound. Tensions flared across the Middle East, with spillover effects seen in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and the Red Sea, where Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in solidarity with Palestinians disrupted global trade and prompted further international military responses. This broadened the scope of the conflict, drawing in more international actors and raising fears of a wider regional conflagration. The long-standing aspiration for a two-state solution, aiming for a secure Israel existing alongside an independent Palestinian state, seemed more distant than ever, a hopeful vision overshadowed by the immediate, brutal reality on the ground. While the international community struggled to forge a path towards a lasting peace, the humanitarian emergency in Gaza continued to worsen. Expert analysis from international affairs specialists consistently highlighted the devastating long-term consequences of the conflict, not just for the immediate populations but for global stability and cooperation. The destruction of Gaza's infrastructure and economy posed monumental reconstruction challenges, estimated to cost tens of billions of dollars and take decades. The security considerations for both Israelis, still reeling from the October 7 attacks, and Palestinians, enduring an unrelenting military campaign, remained paramount and seemingly irreconcilable in the short term. Adherence to international law, including the Geneva Conventions and principles of distinction and proportionality, became a contentious point, with accusations of violations from multiple sides. This initial period of global shock and varied response laid the foundation for the complex, often contradictory, strategies adopted by major world powers, including the United Kingdom, as they grappled with one of the most intractable conflicts of the 21st century. By July 2025, the scars of the devastating conflict that reignited on October 7, 2023, were etched deep into the landscape of the Gaza Strip. The coastal enclave, already one of the most densely populated places on Earth, had transformed into a mosaic of rubble and despair. What began with a meticulously planned, unprecedented Hamas assault, breaching the long-standing blockade and claiming hundreds of lives in southern Israel, swiftly escalated into an overwhelming Israeli military response. This counter-offensive, launched with immense force, aimed to dismantle Hamas's capabilities and ensure Israel's security. The scale of destruction by mid-2025 was catastrophic, dwarfing previous conflicts. Entire neighborhoods were flattened. Vital infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, and water desalination plants, lay in ruins. The United Nations and numerous international humanitarian organizations reported a dire humanitarian situation, teetering on the brink of famine for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Access to clean water, food, and medical supplies remained severely restricted, deepening the crisis while efforts to alleviate suffering faced immense logistical and security hurdles. Displaced families huddled in makeshift shelters, their lives irrevocably altered by the ceaseless violence and relentless bombardments. The global shockwaves from October 7 were immediate and profound. Initial international reactions were often polarized. Many nations, particularly Western allies, expressed robust solidarity with Israel following the horrific attacks, affirming its right to self-defense. However, as the Israeli military response intensified and the humanitarian toll mounted in Gaza, international opinion began to shift. Calls for de-escalation, adherence to international law, and the protection of civilians grew louder. Major global powers found themselves navigating a complex geopolitical landscape, balancing condemnation of Hamas with increasing alarm over the Palestinian civilian situation.